Hello, hope you've enjoyed a good holiday and you've made the most of the sunshine. Now, for the next few weeks, we're going to be continuing our study of the Second World War, and we're going to study the war in North Africa. And what we'll be beginning today is the first of two separate lessons that you'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. So we're now looking at a map of North Africa. So if we look down at the bottom, moving from the west to the left, we have Algeria, Libya, and then Egypt, with the Mediterranean Sea immediately to the north of it. Now, by 1940, as I'm sure you can remember, most of Northern Europe was in German hands. And if we come straight down beneath Germany, to south of Germany, we can see the Italian peninsula. And it's quite important to remember that Italy was one of Hitler's allies in the Second World War. What we're seeing here is the Suez Canal. If you look at the left-hand picture, up the top of it, you see the Mediterranean Sea, and then the canal is a straight line that runs from the top heading down towards the bottom, linking the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Now, we can see the size of the canal. If we look at the right-hand picture, I think that's an American aircraft carrier. So these are huge ships, and that can comfortably pass through the canal itself. Now, if we're thinking about why the canal was important, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, it was down to the fact it was a good shortcut for the British to reach the Far East. If we remember that India was a British colony, and then we also had Malaysia further to the east, also the colonies of Australia and New Zealand. So any wartime aid that these countries were supplying to the United Kingdom ideally would go through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal and via the Mediterranean towards Europe. If the canal was lost, if any country who is an enemy of Britain's seized control of the canal in Egypt, the alternative was a far longer route around the African coastline. There's a second reason why the Middle East was an important area to the British in the Second World War, and this was because of oil. If you're looking at the center of the map, you can see modern-day Iraq and Iran. Now, in the 1930s and 1940s, these were areas where the oil industry was developing, and the so-called Persian oil fields of modern-day Iraq were extremely important to Britain. If we lost control of these oil fields, we'd probably have to rely on oil imports from the United States. But similarly, Hitler would have been very keen to seize control of these oil fields to help power his war machine. So we can see two reasons why control of the Middle East and Egypt in particular is particularly important to the British during the Second World War. Fighting in the desert presents its unique challenges, and you can see some of them on the screen. What you'll have is a chance in the near future to watch an embedded video, which is at the bottom of the screen. It's hyperlinked, and it shows some more of the problems that all troops have when fighting the desert. This was back in the 1940s, but equally in the 21st century. Now, the Italian leader, Mussolini, he had been keen to basically recreate a modern-day Roman Empire. He had illusions of grandeur, and in fact, he used to refer to the Mediterranean as the Italian Sea, literally our sea, Mare Nostrum. And Libya had become effectively an Italian colony in the 1930s. So there's always going to be pressure on the British, who were situated in Egypt, from Hitler's ally Mussolini in Libya. And very early on in the war, Second World War, conflict started between the Italian troops and the British troops. However, by 1941, the British had the Italians on the run, and Mussolini turned to his ally Hitler to send troops to support him. And Hitler did this reluctantly. He never, ever wanted to supply troops to the Italians. To him, this was a diversion of his main effort in 1941, which of course was the fight in Russia, Operation Barbarossa, which you've just learnt about. The leader of the German troops was a man called Erwin Rommel, General Rommel, who gained a lot of grudging respect from his British enemies. He was, in fact, nicknamed the Desert Fox. He was very good at using the media resources that Hitler sent him. And we'll see that there was a huge amount of toing and froing with Rommel's forces pushing the British back into Egypt, back towards Cairo and the Suez Canal, and then they'd be pushed back. Oh, sorry, the German troops would be pushed back by the British. That's more of next lesson. Now, what I'd like you to do now is to have a look at the task that's been uploaded on Google Docs, and it will take you through stage by stage 3 or 4 different questions which I'd like you to tackle, and then hand in the completed document via Google Classroom. So I hope this has given you a basic introduction to what you'll be doing, and good luck.